Good afternoon, everyone. We're very happy and privileged to invite you to our CRMLS training. They're very excited to have you. As all of us as realtors at Coldwell Banker Dynasty, we do appreciate CRMLS and all the great benefits that they provide for us. And we have a special treat for you. We have Shelly here. She's with the compliance department of CRMLS. And she'll be teaching us and sharing some of the top violations going on in what's going on in for the realtors. Hopefully we can all learn from this and we can all be very mindful on how we can stay in compliance when we're sending out and putting in our listings. We want to stay in compliance and not receive these violations or auto entry or auto solds, and then all these different things in which since last year, we began in 2020 May, the requirement to register coming soon or active on all of our listings. So really want to make sure we know how we stay in compliance with CRMLS and data accuracy. So without further ado, Shelly, why don't you go ahead and take the floor, and you'll be sharing your screen and teaching us what the top violations are for realtors.
Yes, thank you, everyone. Thank you for having me. As Kellen said, my name is Shelly, and I'm one of the client supervisors here at CRMLS. And today I'm going to be going over our top violations that we encounter, and also touching a little bit on the clear cooperation policy, as well as the registered and coming soon status. So I am going to stop sharing I'm going to turn off my video and share my screen with you, and we will get started. So first, a little bit about us. We are not a technology company. We actually exist to offer broker compensation and broker cooperation. The compliance department is the cooperation product of our company. So our job is to make sure that the data is accurate and that there's a fair playing field for all of our users within the MLS. So we are the nation's largest MLS. We have over 110,000 members. We have 40 participating AORs or associations at this time. And then we have an additional 14 data share AORs, 4 reciprocal access AORs, and we service 15 additional areas. So this is a screenshot of our website. So as you can see, there's a box that's highlighted for compliance. So if you were to click on that box, it's going to take you into my department's portion of our website. And there's all sorts of good information in there. There's a full set of our rules and regulations, our citation policy, lots of FAQs, forms, everything that you could possibly need. So please go ahead and feel free to always access that. So we do get asked where our rules come from. So our rules are actually modeled or based on model rules that have been developed by CAR and NAR. And then there's additional rules that are proposed by the CRMLS Rules Committee. And that committee is made up of a representative from every one of our member AORs. Once those rules are proposed, then they must be approved by the CRMLS Board of Directors. And then when they go into effect, it's the compliance department's job to make sure that we enforce the rules that have been approved. So here's a snapshot of our citation policy. It's broken down into 4 columns. The first column is the rule number within the rules and regulations. The next column is whether or not the rule constitutes a warning. The third column is a summary of the rule. And then the fourth column is the fine amount in the event that you are found to be in violation. So if a rule does constitute a warning, then we are going to send out an email to you, and we're going to be requesting that you make a correction to whatever the potential violation is, or we may ask you for additional documentation so that we can review that and determine if a violation has actually taken place or not. So we're going to give you 2 days to do either one of these 2 things. If we don't hear back from you, for some reason you don't make the correction that's been requested or you don't provide the documentation, then we are going to proceed with issuing a citation. Same thing goes for if there's a rule that's found to be in violation and it does not warrant a warning, then we're going to issue a citation straight out without sending a warning. So if you do receive a citation, what happens? So you have 20 days to either pay the fine or request what's called a citation review request. And this form can be found under that compliance section within our website. And basically what happens is you fill out this form. It's just sort of your side of the story. You're welcome to provide any evidence that you may have as to why you don't think that the citation you've been issued is justified. And you're going to send this over to us. We're going to receive it. We're going to temporarily withdraw the fine that's been associated with the citation you've received. So we're going to package up your information, our case information, and we're going to send it over to your AOR. And we're going to let them be the determining factor as to whether or not they're going to uphold the citation that's been issued by CRMLS. So the fine, as I said, it is withdrawn temporarily until we receive word of the outcome of your case. And if the association determines that they are going to uphold the citation that's been issued, they'll let us know that, and we're going to reissue you at that time an invoice with a certain amount of time that you'll be responsible, you'll have to pay the fine. If for some reason they decide that our citation was not warranted, then they're going to let us know that as well. We're going to contact you, let you know that you've the citation has been withdrawn and no further action is required. So these are the top violations that we're going to talk about today. There's photos, media, and copyright issues under Rule 11.5. No exterior photo, also under Rule 11.5. Inaccurate information and auto sold status. Misuse of public remarks, and failure to correct a violation. So Rule 11.5, photo guidelines and restrictions reads that photos, virtual tours, and any media submitted to the MLS must not contain any branding or promotional information related to the listing broker or the agent. So branding consists of all of the things here: agent, broker, or brokerage names, photos, or logos, phone numbers, website addresses, email addresses, for sale or lease signs, any billboards, open house signs, promoting signs, or any advertising material that identifies you as the listing agent or your broker. So in other words, none of your none of your photos on your listing are allowed to contain any of this information.
Kelly, is there a possibility of question on
Am I able to put a yard sign but Photoshop the sign out?
I'm
Not
sorry, give me that
Photoshop.
question one more time.
Are we able to take, sometimes there's a yard sign already when they do the photography on the front yard. Can we just put a white sign
Mhm.
that does not have any marketing company information? It's just a Photoshopped white sign.
Yes,
That's
that is
allowed.
allowed. So we do have agents that do that. They white out the sign completely, or they'll blur it out. However, be cautious when blurring the photo, because if the brokerage logo can be recognized, that is going to be considered in violation. So for example, Remax, it's a very identifiable red, white, and blue sign with the balloon. Century 21 is pretty identifiable. So if it's not blurred out enough and it can still be recognized, it could still be found to be in violation. So if the sign is legible and the brokerage is recognizable by their logo, it will be found in violation. But yes, it's acceptable to blank it out, to Photoshop it out. That's no problem. So going back to what's considered branding, and that is what you just mentioned as far as the yard sign in a photo, that is our largest, that's the most frequent violation that we see, is when an exterior photo is taken of the property and there's already a yard sign in the yard and the agent takes the picture and uploads it and there's that contact information. So just be mindful of that. What we see with condos and townhomes is perhaps a for sale or lease sign in a window. So it doesn't necessarily have to be in the yard. Be mindful that you're not capturing any signs in windows. No messages or solicitations, so no like text overlays with any contact information can be on your photos. When it comes to images of people or animals, Any images with children will automatically be removed, and any images of people. So as long as the people are not identifiable and are not the primary subject of the photo, they may be allowed. An example of what would be allowed is if you're selling a coastal property and you would like to upload a photo of the nearest beach, there's most likely going to be people on that beach when the photo is taken. So as long as they're not identifiable, as long as the viewer of that photo can't look at someone and say, I know that face, I know that person. So if they can't be identified, they're far enough away, they're just walking through a park, walking down the beach, it's probably going to be okay. Same thing with animals, as long as the animal sort of coincides with the type of property being sold. So for example, a ranch style property with perhaps horse stalls and there's horses in the stalls, that would be acceptable because that pertains to the type of property that you're selling. What we don't want to see is a close-up photo of just the dog that's roaming on the property. So as long as the photos are directly related to the listing and not branded, then you should be good to go. Same thing with virtual tours. None of the things that I've already mentioned can be allowed or are allowed in virtual tours. The biggest thing we see with this is at the end of a virtual tour, maybe the last 3 or 4 seconds, there could be a pop-up with for more information on this property, contact, and then there's contact information. That's considered branding, and that entire video will be taken down. YouTube videos, be careful with channel names, be careful on virtual tours. If there's anything that can be clicked on that jumps to a website, whether it's your brokerage website, your own listing as a listing agent's website, that is all considered to be branding. The name of the channel, it cannot be the name of you as the listing agent. It cannot be any team name. It can't be a brokerage name. Most agents just get around this by using the channel name as the address of the property. That makes it pretty safe. Okay, moving on. Also under Rule 11.5 are copyright issues. And this is kind of a big one. So the rule reads that by submitting any media to the MLS, the participant and subscriber represent and warrant that they own the right to reproduce and display the media, or they have procured such rights and all necessary licenses from appropriate parties. So this basically boils down to ownership or creation of the photo and permission. So we've broken it down into 3 scenarios. The first one is if you take the photos yourself using a camera or your phone, do you need permission to upload the photos to your listing on the MLS? And the answer to that is no, because you are the owner or creator and you don't need anyone's permission to use your own photos. Scenario number 2 is if a photographer takes the photos on your behalf, do you need written permission to use those photos? And the answer to that is actually yes. Even though you may have paid for those photos, you're not the creator or the original owner of those photos. So that person, that photographer, needs to give you written instruction, written authorization that it's okay for you to upload the photos that they took even though you purchased them, onto the MLS. Scenario number 3 has to do with using photos from a prior listing. We do see that agents go back to a previous listing and say, oh, those pictures are great. Might be just as easy for me to copy those and put those up on how, the property hasn't changed that much. I'm going to use these photos. Do not copy photos from a previous listing. As far as permission to use photos from a previous listing, you can if you get the permission, but the permission may not necessarily be from the listing agent, previous listing agent. You would only need their permission if they actually took the photos and were the owner of those photos. If the previous agent hired a photographer way back when, that photographer actually owns those photos, and that's who you're going to need to get permission from. So you're going to have to follow kind of a chain to find the ownership. Sometimes it's worth it, sometimes it's not. But in any case, you do need permission to use photos from a previous listing. As far as what happens when you upload a photo to the MLS. So every time a photo is uploaded, in the very bottom right corner, you're going to see our initials of our company, CRMLS, and it's going to be a transparent watermark And every time a photo is uploaded, that watermark is generated. So if you're using photos, if you copy photos from a previous listing, when those photos were uploaded, that generated a watermark. If you copy those onto yours, when you upload those photos, your listing is now going to have what's called, your photos, I'm sorry, are now going to have what's called a double watermark. So when we get reports that someone's using my photos and I didn't give them permission, the very first thing that we do is we look for that double watermark. And if it's there, automatically those photos are all taken down from your listing, and it's a very large fine in the amount of $1,500, and it does not constitute a warning. So be very careful when using photos that you have not taken yourself, whether it's from a photographer or from a previous listing. Now, as far as the written permission from a photographer or from a previous agent or previous photographer, you need to get written permission before the photos are uploaded to your listing. So don't upload the photos and then go back and get permission. It's too late. So if it ever comes to the point of an investigation with us, we're going to look at, did you upload the photos before you had the permission? And if you did, then it's unfortunately going to be found in violation.
I had a question on that,
Yes,
Shelley.
sure.
In terms of the photos, where I had a listing last year, it was a rental property, the tenant moved out. Can I use my last year photos that I own and then upload it, and then I put a disclaimer saying these photos were taken in 2020 in the
Yes.
private remarks?
Yeah, you can do that. The only thing that I would suggest is that you not copy the photos from your previous listing and upload them, because it's going to generate a double watermark. And through the course of an investigation, we would of course uncover that. But at first glance, it could look like the photos were copied. So it's best practice to upload the same photos from the originals, if that makes sense.
That makes sense, but can I write it in the public description, or it has to be in the private?
Well, are you saying that the condition changed, or just that you're using the same photos again?
We're using the same photos. The condition is substantially the same, but it's possible that the tenant over the past year, there's some cosmetic differences, like a stain here and there.
Yeah, you're not really, I wouldn't suggest putting that in public remarks, because that's a public facing, well, it would really depend on what verbiage you were trying to use to explain the condition. You could put something very generic, such as pictures, are 3 years old and may not represent the current condition of the property. That would be okay.
Okay.
Because it pertains to the property. And you would be able to put that either in public or private remarks. Either one would be fine.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So moving on to third-party photos, can I use Google, Bing, Yahoo, Getty, or other third-party images? And the answer to that is basically no. And the reason for that is because they do not provide the substantial written authorization to use their photos. So it's best just to steer clear of that. The largest violation we see here has to do with Google Photos. So some agents, instead of taking a photo or having a photo taken perhaps of the exterior of the property, they might just pull up the Google Street View and pull that photo and upload it to their listing, and they use that as their exterior photo. That's not allowed. And we're able to tell what's a Google photo and what's an original photo, or perhaps taken by a photographer or yourself. Google Photos have many identifying metrics. So they do have their own watermark, which is like the logo of their company. And that'll be found sometimes in the sky, sometimes in a tree, sometimes on the street or the sidewalk. You have to really look for it, but it's always there in a Google photo. The arrows on the streets, if you take a screenshot, that we all know the arrows where you can pan around 360 degrees and see what the neighborhood looks like. Those arrows are a dead giveaway that that's a Google photo. Aerial images of Google Photos, satellite views where the street names are shown, map pins are shown. Again, dead giveaway that those are Google Photos. Google does something where they actually split the image, and if you're not looking for it, you don't see it. but I do have an example of it on the next slide or two. So they'll take the picture apart and put it back together, but they don't put it back together exactly evenly. And so it's always just a little bit off. So those are ways that we identify what third-party images are. And again, third-party images, if you're using these without permission, again, this results in a $1,500 fine without a warning. So steer clear from that as well. So if you do need to get written permission from a photographer most of the time, we recommend using something in zip forms. It's called the PIA, or the Property Images Agreement form. Photographers do have their own written agreements that they sometimes will request that you sign, and we can't tell you to sign those or not sign those. However, most of the time, those agreements from the photographer are going to protect the photographer more than they're going to protect you. So the property images agreement is more of an all-encompassing, well-rounded, fair form for permission and authorization to use photos. So that's why we recommend it. If you do get this signed, you don't need to submit it to us. You just need to keep it for your files in the event that we ever do ask for it. So moving on, still under Rule 11.5, we have a subsection 0.1. This has to do with the exterior photograph requirements. So it reads that a listing must include at least one photo of the exterior of the structure listed in the MLS. So this photo does need to be uploaded within 2 calendar days of entering your listing, and it needs to remain on the listing for all statuses. So you might have 20 pictures, and you might want to remove all of those pictures because escrow closed and your new buyers don't want them up, or whatever the case may be. You are welcome to remove those photos prior to closing the listing out, but you do need to keep at least one photo of the exterior of the property on the listing at all times, whether the listing has closed, expired, been canceled. It does need to contain one exterior photo. There's only 2 exceptions to this rule, and that is if a listing is canceled within 5 days after you've entered it, then you don't need to have a photo on there. And the other is if it's a business opportunity listing, we're not going to require that a photo be on there. As far as the exterior photo, you don't need to use the front of the house or the property. You can use the rear view of the property if that's more pleasing, or whatever you know, if that's what you choose to do. And we just ask that, like on condos and townhomes, we've had images of just a front door, maybe with the unit number put up as the exterior of the property. That's not acceptable. It does need to be a substantial portion of the exterior of the property so that anyone viewing your listing with your photos can have an idea of what it is that the property looks like and the condition of it.
Thanks, Shelley. I had a question on that too. The exterior photo picture. So you're saying it is allowed if I have 20 something photos, I can reduce it down to 1 or 2 prior to closing it out, as long as that 1 or 2 is the exterior of the building that encompasses the structure.
Correct. Yes, that's correct. So you can remove photos prior to the listing being finalized, and finalized could mean, like I said, expired, canceled, closed. Once a listing is finalized, photos cannot be removed, and that's under our Rule 11.8. It becomes historical data within the MLS, and we don't allow photos to be removed after it's been closed. So just make sure if you want photos taken down that you do it before you finalize the listing.
Okay, yeah, because usually the buyer tries to request it after the fact.
Yeah, we get a lot of that. And
Okay.
in that case, the only option that we have is we can turn off the syndication feed that goes out to the third-party sites, out to the to websites like Realtor.com, Trulia, sorry. And what will happen is we turn off that syndication, and then the listing, even though it may be finalized, is not continually fed out to those third-party sites. It stops that syndication. However, any photos that have already gone out, maybe when the listing was active or even pending, could still be out there. They could still be on those websites. And in that case, that's not something we would be able to assist with. You would have to contact those websites directly to get those photos taken down.
Okay. How do I process if I wanted to do what you're just talking about right now?
So all we need is written authorization from either the listing agent themselves or the broker. And we would just need it in written form that you're requesting that the syndication feed on this listing be turned off.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mhm. So these are some examples of media violations. The very first one on the top left, be very mindful of what you're capturing in your photos when you're taking photos. Be mindful of pictures within pictures. So a family room, for example, could have family portraits on the wall. And if you capture those family portraits and even of the living room or family room, and then you upload it, and there could be children in the family portraits within your picture, that's going to be found in violation. The people could be identifiable. So please be careful what you're capturing within your pictures. The second one, the cartoon, is actually a photo that someone uploaded. It tried to use as their exterior photo. Your photos do have to be real life photos, no cartoon caricatures. The third photo on the top is a photo that's been used multiple times over and over, copied from previous MLSs. So as you can see, it's been copied 1, 2, 3 times. And there's our little watermark in the bottom right-hand corner. The fourth picture on the top is a picture of a Google picture. So it's a little bit different, but all in all, it's a Google photo. So as you can see, there's an arrow on the street. That's a giveaway that it's a Google photo. The minivan has been sliced in half and not put back together correctly. Sure, there's a watermark somewhere either in the sky or on the building or in the street. It's just not visible in this photo. Going to the bottom left, the gentleman in the pool. He does not come with the sale of the house. So a picture of the pool would be fine, not the picture of the person in the pool. Not to mention, without the sunglasses that we've put on his face, he would be considered identifiable if someone did know him. Moving on to the QR codes. We don't allow QR codes because we don't know where they lead to. They could be, they could lead to a website or what have you. And so we just don't allow those at all. The third picture over is a broker accolades. That doesn't have anything to do with the condition of the property or anything about the property. So please remember that your photos have to relate to the property. And then the last one there is obviously a Google aerial view. You can see the street names and the map pins. And so that would be considered to be a third-party photo and be found in violation. So moving on to inaccurate information and auto sold status. First of all, inaccurate information. So do your due diligence, please, and make sure that any information that you're putting in the MLS about your listing is as accurate as you know it to be. Whether it's bedroom count, if there's a garage or not, if there's air conditioning or not. When you're checking off all those boxes under the features, please make sure that you're accurate with what it is that you're checking off, saying that the property has. Inaccurate information also has to do with status, listing status. So if you've accepted an offer on a property and you want to get some more time, maybe some more potential buyers or what have you, and you decide not to change the status right away into either active under contract or pending, that's going to be a violation. You need to make that status change within 2 days of the accepted offer. So if it's not made and we get a report that, I'm the buyer's agent and we're under contract, we're in escrow, and the listing agent still has this property as active, we're going to investigate that and we're going to then ask you for some documentation, etc. So just make sure that, the information on your listing all the way around is as accurate as possible.
I had a question on this one too, Shelley.
Sure.
The 2 days is calendar days, right? Or is it business days?
It's calendar days now.
Okay. And then the second question I had was, okay, this is a situation that happens to all of us where a tenant and landlord will sign and execute a lease agreement subject to delivery of the security deposit and the money, let's say the move-in cost within maybe next week. Now, although there's a signed listing agreement, the consideration hasn't been completed until next week when there's a delivery of the deposit. When does that 2 days time frame start?
Okay, on a lease, you don't have to change the status until it's closed. You don't have to put a lease from active into pending.
Well, no, I want to put it from active to leased.
That would be when there is when the final contract is signed. Then you would have 2 dates, I'm sorry, 2 days from whatever the last signature date is. And if the deposits aren't in or what have you, that's not something that CRMLS concerns ourselves with. What we want to know is the final date on that lease agreement. You've got to enter it as closed within 2 days.
Okay, because that's an issue where sometimes the delivery of that is part of the contract, and then so we have an issue because we're not 100% sure. Although they sign something, there's so many times where they back out or cancel or
Right,
whatever.
right. Yeah, no, we have to go off of the contract.
Okay.
Okay, so moving on to auto sold status. When you accept an offer on a property, you have, again, 2 days to make the status change from active to either active under contract or pending. And this at this time, when you change the status, the system is going to prompt you to enter a mandatory field that is the estimated close of escrow date. So be mindful of whatever date that is. Keep track of that date. We will help you keep track of that date, and I'll go over that in just a minute. But what happens is if that date arrives and you haven't closed your listing, let's say your escrow hasn't closed, or maybe it closed and you just didn't go back in and close your listing. So this date comes and goes, and 5 days pass from the date that you've entered as your estimated close of escrow date. If nothing's been done to update that date, then the system is going to automatically close that listing for you. They're going to put it into what's called auto sold status. It's going to automatically sell your listing. And you're going to know this because you're going to go from whatever your previous status was. It will now say closed, and there will be a red flag next to the word closed. So, and you're not going to have access anymore to your listing. And so what you're going to have to do is either contact us, or you can go into our website and fill out what's called an auto sold correction form. And you're going to fill that out, you're going to send it over to us, and then we're going to update your listing for you. So whether we'll be updating it to, if you send it back and you say escrow hasn't closed yet, it's still pending, this is the new estimated close of escrow date, that's fine, we'll make that correction for you. However, if we contact you because the auto sold report has come through to us, we're going to give you 2 days to fill out that auto sold correction form so that we can correct that listing for you. If you don't, if we send out that warning to please provide us with this auto sold correction form within 2 days, and we don't receive that form within 2 days, then we're going to issue a citation for an auto sold listing. At that time, we're going to ask you again to please go in, fill out that form, and correct your listing. And in a few minutes, under another rule, I'll explain where we would go from there if it's still not done. So we do provide you plenty of notice that your estimated close of escrow date is approaching. We start sending you notices 14 days prior to that date, 7 days prior, 1 day prior. We send you a notice that day. Hey, today's your close of escrow date. What's happening? 2 days after that date comes and goes, and then 5 days after that date comes and goes. And on the 6th day of the auto sold, the system is going to put your listing into auto sold. So moving on to public remarks restrictions, rule 12.5. This is the property description field. It's public facing, and it should be used only to describe the property's physical and aesthetic characteristics. So because it's public facing, we don't want anything having to do with security issues or safety issues in this field. So we don't allow any gate codes. Again, it's public facing. So no showing instructions. Please don't note the hours that the seller is available. Maybe, that they work all day and they're not home until 6 o'clock. Please don't note anything like that. No compensation information. That's not the general public's, they don't need to know that information. There's a special spot for that under the BAC comments or field. No lockbox information. We don't want the public to know where the lockbox is located, and no occupancy status of the property, such as the fact that it's vacant and that this house is sitting there empty. You have a question? Okay, and the other thing that we don't want to see in the public remarks is any contact information. So no agent email addresses, phone numbers, agent name, no call me, no brokerage information, no open house information. As far as the contact information, the reason for that is if a buyer's agent is sending listings to their potential buyer, and that contact information for the listing agent is right there for the buyer's agent to, for the potential buyers to see, there is a possibility that they may pick up the phone and call the listing agent, you know, say, I have questions that maybe my agent can't answer or what have you. And then there's potential for losing that potential buyer. So we just don't allow that information. That way it makes it a fair playing field for everyone. As far as open house information, there's a special field for that. And then language that violates applicable fair housing laws and guidelines. An example of this is we did have a report of a landlord who in the public remarks put that we had a report that the landlord put, the listing agent put in the public remarks that the landlord was seeking a mature female tenant only. Yeah, and so that was, you know, that's obviously some of those terms are on the fair housing word list of not to use. That list is actually on our website. You can go into the compliance section and just type in the search bar fair housing, and a list of all of the do and do not words. You do and do not use words are on there. So it's very, very helpful. Some things you may be surprised at that could be considered to be in violation. So
yeah, I had a question, Shelley. So occupancy status question. Okay, so let's say we have a duplex and I say something like, can the listing agent say something like, oh, front unit is tenant occupied, rear unit could be delivered vacant?
Those tenant occupied is on the list of do not use of fair housing.
We're selling an income property.
Right, I know. If you refer to that list, it's under the list of do not use. So that's not really even a CRMLS thing. It's just that we have to enforce that because it's on that list. Now, whether we would actually issue a citation for using that word, I don't know. It would depend on the context that the word was used, but it is on that list of avoid using this term. And I don't know the reason behind it, quite honestly, but it's on that.
Yeah, I can understand the reason is because you don't want to show a home is vacant, so that there's going to be signaling to criminals to break in.
Right.
But when you're describing the property, the word tenant, if you search tenant and you do star tenant star in the property description, you're going to find 1,000 listings that say the word tenant. Sometimes the listing agent has to say something like, oh, long-term tenants, or they're going to say something like, can be delivered vacant at the end of at close of escrow. These are things that we're suffering with and we don't want to get a violation on.
Right. The only thing that I can recommend is that if there's questionable.
Sorry, let me
there's too much background noise, guys.
I gotta mute somebody. Somebody Joan. Okay. So in terms of, so then I mean, you could do it right now. You're compliant. You type the word tenant and you're going to find thousands of listings with that word.
Right. Right. And this is the third time this week, actually, that this exact example has come up. And so I'm going to need to take this to our director of compliance and let him know that this is really, this specific word is an issue, because I had a lady yesterday and same thing. She said, I got cited for using the word tenant, but she was using it with the potential of the property, that it, you know, you could bring a tenant in and as an income property. She wasn't using it as the fact that there's a tenant currently in the property. So this is something that obviously we're going to have to address. So right now, the only thing I can tell you is that if you come across needing to use that word somehow on your listing, contact us and let it either via chat or email and let us know how it is you want to use it, and maybe we can help you with some rewording in the meantime.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Okay. Hi, Shelly. This is Jean. I have a question. Like some owner, they doesn't want to announce they are the owner live in the house. So can we put tenant?
Right now, not in public remarks. You can put that in private remarks. That would be okay, but not in the public remarks.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Mhm.
But Jean, I would say no, you can write occupant is there, but don't use the word
Just representing the property.
you're saying is when it's actually an owner living there. Just say occupant.
Okay, so if you do want to put your own personal information, get it out there into the cyberspace, we do give you an opportunity to do that. It's under the description tab when you're entering a listing, and it's this box that's syndication remarks and branded virtual tour. So if you do have a virtual tour where you want to put your contact information at the end or at the beginning or wherever you'd like to, then that URL is going to be considered branded, and this is where you would enter it. The syndication remarks are actually a copy of the public remarks, but if you want to, in this field, you can also add your contact information. So this is going to go out to those third-party websites, but they pick and choose what they want to use off of listings. So we can't guarantee that they'll use this information, but it is available to them. Okay, moving on to failure to correct violation, rule 14.4. Going back to that auto sold scenario. So if a listing is in auto sold, we're going to send you a warning notice, and we're going to give you 2 days to provide us with that form. If the form's not provided, then we're going to issue you a citation, and within that citation is going to be another request to provide the auto sold correction form within 2 days. After that, if we still don't hear from you, we still don't have that form, and we aren't able to correct the listing, then we're going to move on and issue you a separate violation under Rule 14.4. And this is for failure to correct a violation. So we're not issuing you 2 citations for the same violation. The first citation is for the violation. The second citation in this case would be for not correcting the violation when we asked you to within the first citation. We're going to add under the rule 14.4, if you do receive a citation, we're still going to give you another 2 days to please make the correction that we're asking for. And if you don't at that point, we're not going to issue the listing agent any more warnings or citations. We're then going to move on to issuing either a citation to either the office manager or the broker of record. And this is going to be issued for failing to supervise. And the reason why is because all of that other communication, the warnings, the citations, the broker and or office manager were copied on that. They were CC'd on all of those notifications that were sent to the listing agent. And it's technically the broker's record, the broker and the office manager's responsibility to keep their agents in line and make sure that they're adhering to all of the rules. And so they should have gone to that listing agent and said, hey, why aren't you correcting this? CRMLS is trying to reach you, whatever the case may be. So they would, in this case, receive a citation. And if they choose to not pay the fine that's associated with their citation, then they could be subject to suspension from the MLS. And if a broker gets suspended, then the access to the MLS for all of the agents working under that broker gets cut off. And so then no one within that office would be able to access their listings until the broker pays the fine. So please just don't ever let it get to this point. If you do receive communication from us way down on the warning level, please try and resolve it at that point. So that covers the top violations. What we're going to cover now is mandatory delivery and submission, which is the clear cooperation policy. And so this is the NAR clear cooperation policy that states within 1 business day of marketing a property to the public, the listing broker must submit the listing to the MLS for cooperation with other participants. So this has to do with excluded listings or off-market listings, or I'm sorry, off MLS listings. formerly known as pocket listings. And this clear cooperation only applies to residential units with residential 1 through 4 unit properties, and also residential vacant land or lots. So here's the CRMLS rule as it relates to clear cooperation, and it's similar in that it reads within 1 business day of marketing or advertising a residential property to any member of the public for sale, which contains 1 to 4 units or is a residential vacant land lot, the broker must submit the property to the MLS for cooperation with other participants. So this rule can be broken down into 2 sections. The first section is marketing and advertising, and the second section is to the public, because that's what the issue is, that you can't market to the public. So first of all, what is marketing and advertising? That consists of anything such as signs, websites, social media, broker or franchise operated websites, communications, verbal or written. Verbal is even considered a conversation with someone about an off market or off MLS property or excluded property. You can't do that with the exception of 2 things. I'll get to that in a minute. No flyers or written materials, and no open houses. That's considered marketing. So you can't market to the public. So who is the public? The easiest way to describe this is the public is basically everyone, with the exception of 2 things. The public is not considered to be an individual or an entity that has signed within the last year the disclosure regarding real estate agency relationship form, or the AD form. So if you have a client that has signed that form with you within the past 12 months, you are able to talk to them about off MLS properties. They're not considered to be the public. The other entity is an agent underneath the same designated broker as you. So not, if it's Coldwell Banker in Anaheim, most likely Coldwell Banker in Burbank is not going to be run, but they're not going to be under the same broker. So only the agents in Anaheim under the same broker can talk about an off MLS listing. You can't talk about it just because you're both with a Coldwell, under the umbrella of Coldwell Banker. So it does have to be under the same broker. So those are the only 2 entities that you can talk to about an excluded listing, as long as it's excluded from the MLS. If you violate this and you've got an excluded listing and you market it to the public, then within 1 business day, you do need to enter that listing as either coming soon or active.
I'm going to have a couple of questions on this.
Sure.
So maybe I'll pause right here. I know you're going to talk about it, but so you said within 1 business day, the deadline is you have 2 days from assigning a listing to enter it as registered, coming soon, or active, correct?
Yes.
2 calendar days.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we have a situation in which, let's say the seller is going to do some work and repairs, a month later, it'll be ready. Okay. So we can't put it as coming soon because it's a month later.
Right.
And so we would put it as a registered listing. And then a month later, how do we resolve the situation where the seller says, oh, I need 2 more weeks for this and this paint? And then, so what process do we do that if we wanted to extend it?
So let me go through this screen, and then this might help a little bit with that. So the process is that first a seller signs a listing contract. Obviously, we know that. You just said you've got 2 days to enter the listing as either registered, coming soon, or active. So registered status applies only to excluded listings. So if you're excluding a listing for any amount of time, whether it's 5 days or 30 days, or even the duration of the listing agreement, then it needs to go into registered, as long as it's not going to go into the MLS as some sort of an active.
So there's one called 27400 Fairfield Avenue. It's a zip, and it's supposed to have everything in there. I don't know if that makes a difference.
I'm going to mute her.
Okay.
Yeah, because once you open the zip, it's all in.
Okay.
Who is it?
It looks like Joan on my screen.
Okay.
There we go. Okay, so registered status only has to do with excluded listings. So Are we good?
We're good.
Okay. So regardless of how long you're going, so this basically, let's go back to the previous process of when you used to submit an exclusion form. This takes the place of having to submit that exclusion form to us. So you can keep your property off the market. If a seller says, let's keep it off the market for 15 days, I'm not going to be ready for 15 days. And 15 days comes up and they say, I need another 15 days. So now we're looking at 30 days. You can extend, you could always extend your exclusion form, or you can extend on in your registered status. You're welcome to extend that. If you're going to have a start marketing date, then you just extend that date within the registered process. And then if you're ready to pull it out of registered and you want to go into coming soon or active, then that's what you do at that point. So does that clarify what you were asking?
So we can re-register it. And then the other situation is we can't extend it if it's coming soon status, though. You're correct.
Okay, yeah, so I'll get into that next. Yes. But if you're going to extend a registered listing, you need to make sure that you extend it before whatever the start showing date was that you entered to begin with. So if you said, I'm excluding this for 15 days and we're going to start showing it on December 12th, and December 10th, your seller says, I'm not ready, I need another 10 days. You need to extend it before the 12th. Otherwise, it's going to be considered, you're going to have to put it into either coming soon or active. So just make sure if you're extending your registered listings that you're doing it before whatever start showing date it was that you entered.
Okay, great. So now I have a question on the signing of the listing contract and the timing.
Mhm.
Okay, so I got a husband and wife. And let's say the husband signs one today, the
Mhm.
wife signs and executes it 7 days from now, next week.
Mhm.
Now, the other component is our listing period is not supposed to begin until, let's say, December 15th, mid-December.
Mhm.
When is the 2-day time frame begin?
Okay, so you'll note that it says effective list date. So whatever the last date is on the listing agreement, so whether that's a signature date or the beginning date of the listing agreement timeframe. So if
December
there's
15th.
yeah, so December 15th, you would then have 2 days to enter the listing. Because that listing agreement is, even though they've signed it maybe in November, it's not going to be effective until December 15th. So you would need to upload your listing within 2 days of December 15th. So just always think of whatever the last date is, whether it's the last date of signatures, or if the effective date of the agreement, as far as the term of the listing agreement, is after the signature date, then that's the effective date. So whatever the last date is your effective contract date.
So that makes sense. And let's say our listing gets flagged somehow because let's say the 15th occurred and then the seller says, I wanted to wait till January 1st of next year. Now, in this situation, you advise us to sign a new listing contract with January 1st as the revised listing beginning date? Or is it simple enough to have the sellers cross it out, initial the new date? When let's say you ask.
Yeah, that's not something that we would be able to advise you on how to proceed with. That would have to be a question for your in-house, your broker or legal counsel. We can't advise on how to proceed contractually.
Okay.
So an option would be if you wanted to enter it and then put it on hold or withdrawn until you're ready to then bring it back to active. That's an option.
Okay, but the other option we can use is modification of terms.
Yep.
Listing beginning date to begin on just January 1st, 2022.
Yes.
And that will be acceptable if we happen to get flagged somehow and we have to produce this record.
Yes. Okay, so moving on. So as far as the registered status goes, if you're not going to be excluding a listing, then for any amount of time or for the duration of the listing agreement, then you don't even need to worry about the registered status, quite honestly. That's only for excluded listings. However, if you've entered a registered listing and you do market it, there's no marketing allowed in the registered, once it's been entered as registered, no marketing. But if you market it while it's excluded, while it's registered, then within 1 business day of that marketing, you're going to have to enter it as either coming soon or active. So here's the differences between registered and coming soon. So as we've been talking about, registered has no public marketing. You cannot market the property to the public while it's in the registered stat, or it's registered is not a status, it's actually just a process. So while it's registered, you cannot enter, you cannot public market. Registered is not displayed in the MLS. So if your seller says, I don't want my property in the MLS under any, circumstances, it's not going to be displayed in the MLS. It doesn't come up for any search criteria. There's only 4 people that can actually see a registered listing, and that is the listing agent themselves, the listing broker or office manager, and our staff here. So those are the only people that will ever even be able to get close to that listing to see it. There's no commission that needs to be offered on a registered listing. The DOM doesn't accrue. There's no distribution through the MLS, so we don't send out that listing anyplace. Showings are only to the listing broker's client, like we talked about, those with the AD form. And then the form that's required is the exclusion form. So going back to the SELM form or any in-house exclusion form, anything that can be considered an exclusion form, you still need to get that signed by your seller and you need to keep it for your files, but you don't need to submit that to us anymore. So instead of sending that to us within 2 days, now you have to just go in and register the property within 2 days. Moving on to coming soon. So this does have, this status does have a 21-day maximum. You don't have to use all 21 days. You can use 5 days and you can adjust those days within that time period up to 21 days. So if you originally say, I'm going to have this listing coming soon for 5 days, and then your seller says, no, I'm not ready, I need another 10 days. You can go in and you can adjust your start showing date. Now you're at 15 days. You've still got 6 days to play with. So if you don't do anything, then you're going to have entered a start showing date. So at that point, regardless of what that date is, whether it's the full 21 days or whatever, however many days you've determined, the very next day, the system is going to make your listing active. So it's going to take it out of coming soon. It's going to make it active. Once that happens, it cannot be returned to coming soon. The system won't even let us return it to coming soon. It's just not possible. So let's say 21 days comes and your seller says, I'm not ready, I need more time. You're welcome to move your listing from coming soon into hold at that point, because it's basically the same thing. You can still market, but you can't show the property. Which brings me to the biggest thing about coming soon status is that you cannot show the property. So you can market the property in any way that you'd like, as long as the marketing shows that the words coming soon, and it has to indicate what the start showing date is when the listing is going to go active. So marketing is allowed in coming soon, no showings are allowed. Coming soon will be displayed in the MLS. So if there's a search, whatever search criteria is put in, it is going to populate. Commission has to be offered. There's no DOM for up to 21 days, however many days you've determined you're going to be in coming soon, whatever that time frame is, you're not going to accumulate your DOM until you make your listing active. There's limited distribution through the MLS. So these don't go out to third-party websites. They only go out to broker websites through our IDX feed. And then the form that's required is a coming soon form, and I will show you what that is and tell you where to find it.
Shelly, I had a question on status. Let's say I have a listing.
I'm sorry, your connection's not good.
Oh, I'm sorry, can you hear me now?
There you go. There you go.
So let's say I have a listing coming February next year.
Mm-hmm.
And I have this as signed listing, but it's excluded all the way to February.
Mhm.
Is the broker internally able to show the property while it's excluded from the MLS till February?
Only to those that have signed an AD form or to another agent within under your umbrella.
So I
Because
can show it, yes.
you can show it to a potential client that has signed an AD form with you within the past 12 months.
Okay. Good.
But if you have a new client that comes to you, well, actually, if they've signed within the, yeah, so any client of yours or potential client that you have an AD form on file for, you can show a property to them.
Okay, because it actually wouldn't even need to be excluded if I signed it today because the beginning date is not until February 1st. So I don't even need to.
Well, yeah, if your effective list contract date, yeah, if the start period of your listing agreement, the
Mhm.
beginning of the listing agreement versus the between the beginning and the expiration date, if that's not until February, then yes.
Okay. Okay, great.
Okay, so here's the coming soon form. This can one that a violation for not obtaining a signed coming soon form will result in a fine of $750, and this rule does not carry a warning. So please make sure that if you're going to put your listing in coming soon, before you put it in coming soon, you do have this authorization, this form. Kelvin, going back to your previous question about if a listing is not going to become effective until February.
Yeah, I'm here.
It still needs to be, you still need to have an exclusion form.
Yeah, we have the exclusion form on hand, yes.
Yeah, okay. I just want to make sure you still need to have the exclusion form and be registered. Yeah, okay.
And registered, because the registered doesn't require it until we get the listing date, which is February 1st, beginning date.
Well, I guess there's some confusion about that. So you
Is it-
need,
if it starts February 1st, then we don't have the duty to input it to the MLS or register it or coming soon until February
no,
1st.
I'm sorry. I probably, I didn't come across it. So going back to registered, if you sign a listing agreement and you're going to be excluding that listing, let me think about this. I have to wrap my head around this.
Yeah, I wanted to start beginning term February 1st of next year because they're going to do repairs or whatever. I'm just curious. Yeah, I just wanted to get the clarity on this item because the duty of reporting it to MLS within 2 days begins on that beginning date, the later date you said.
Yes, but
we do have an
so,
exclusion. We have a we will have an SELM saying that it's going to be February 1st start date.
yes, and so within 2 days of the start date, you'll need to enter it into either coming soon or active. But once you sign a listing agreement, then if you're going to be excluding the property immediately, it does still need to be entered as registered within 2 days of the signed listing agreement. But then within 2 days of the effective date, it needs to be changed to either coming soon or active. So
I thought the registration coming soon or active requirement, you said it was the later of the start date, beginning date.
that is, then that's where I'm saying that I probably confused you. If a listing agreement is signed and you're excluding it, it needs to be entered within 2 days of the last signature date. Moving up to the effective date of between the term of the listing agreement, the start and the expiration, within 2 days of that date, you need to enter the listing as either active, or I'm sorry, coming soon or active.
Okay,
So as soon as you obtain a listing agreement, whatever the last signature date is, you gave the husband and wife example.
Yep.
So if the wife signed 7 days later, within 2 days of her signature date, you have to enter that as registered at least, if you're excluding it. Now, moving up to the effective date of the agreement, if that's not going to be till February 1st, come February 1st, you've got 2 days to then enter the agreement, change the status, if you will, to either coming soon or active.
okay, I got you.
Okay, sorry for that if I confused you. Okay, so showing a coming soon in matrix falls under rule 9.3. Basically, we've talked about it. You can't show a listing while it's in coming soon. If you move your coming soon into hold, or at any time, if you put your property on hold, you cannot show the property. However, you can still mark it under these two statuses, and you can't show the property until it's either active or active under contract. So here's coming soon as defined under Rule 10.1. You have to have a valid contract in order to upload a coming soon listing. No offer can already be accepted, but offers can be accepted under the coming soon status. However, you still can't show the property. So if you want to accept an offer, you can, but if you decide to show the property to the potential buyer, then you're going to have to change it to active under contract at that point, at least. The listing broker needs to be in possession of the signed coming soon form. Marketing and advertising is allowed. And again, the property is not available for showings. And then hold, same thing. So you cannot show it, but you can market it. And you do need written authorization. So if you entered it as coming soon and you're going to carry it over into hold, you do need some sort of written authorization from your seller, allowing you to place it from coming soon into hold. And then here's the citation policy for anything having to any violation under the clear cooperation policy. The citation, this is a little bit different than the citation that I showed you earlier, where the fines were preset. So these are actually a percentage of the list price. And because of the pricing in California, we've decided to just sort of give you some parameters and make it a minimum fine of $500, not to exceed $2,500. And then moving on, these are just some resources that we have for you. We have broker resources with trainings and IDX feeds. Our education section of our website, there's live and recorded webinars and how-to videos. There's a knowledge-based library where you can go in and search any topic that you'd like, and you're probably going to get at least some sort of an answer as to what it is you're looking for. The support, these are the people that answer the phone when you call in. They're here 7 days a week, Monday through Friday from 8:30 a.m. to 9 p.m. And then Saturday and Sunday, they're from 10 to 3. And then the compliance department, we are available via live chat. Our section of the website, we have FAQs, we have all the forms I talked about, the citation review request form, the auto sold correction form, a full set of the rules and regulations is available online, as well as the citation policy. And then here's the compliance department's email, compliance@crmls.org, and also there's our website right there, crmls.org. And that's all I've got.
Well, I got a couple more questions for you, Shelly.
Sure.
Okay, let's say I got a single family house and it does have a guest ADU in the back.
Mm-hmm.
The question is, can I put this as single family residence and also as a income property?
Yes, you can list a property in 2 different property types at a time. The only thing that you need to be aware of is when it comes time to closing those listings, you can't close both of them. You need to close whichever one the appropriate property type falls under. So if you sold it as an income property, then you would need to close that listing and cancel the other listing. So you can only close out one of those listings, the other needs to be canceled. But yes, you can have the property in 2 different property types concurrently.
Okay, great. And the other question was regarding, let's say I have a residential property, single family, and then the zoning is commercial. Maybe it changed, or did a zoning change recently or in the past? So can I put that as a commercial and as a residential, even though the existing structure is residential, the commercial usage?
Yes. Yes,
Put
you
it
can
in there
do.
as well.
Mhm.
Now, the third question I have is regarding a homeowner. Let's say we had a fixer on the market.
Oh, I'm sorry, your feed is breaking up again.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There you go.
So let's say I have a property that was kind of, a fixer, and we had it in the market 100 days, didn't sell. So the owner says, okay, I'm gonna go paint, repair, and do this and this and this. And they want to put the property back out the 30 days after, take it off the market, put it back in. The cumulative days on market, I think, is going to continue. And the days on market would be.
Oh, your feed. I'm sorry. It seems like when you get too close to the camera, I can't hear you.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
There you go. Perfect.
So if I'm, the owner says, okay, let's take the property off the market, I'm gonna do some repairs and then let's put it back on the market in 30 days.
Mhm.
Is there a way to, I mean, one, are we supposed to use the same MLS number is my first question? Or can we cancel it and put it back on the market? But the property is kind of somewhat different. It's repaired, it's probably a higher price, or
Mhm.
probably has some stuff done. How can I go around getting that days on market resets legally?
So the only way that the cumulative days on market resets is if 90 days has passed between either the cancellation of a previous listing, or if the listing actually sold and was recorded and a transaction took place. Other than that, if a property is relisted under 90 days, the cumulative days on market is going to stay, it's going to accrue. So you could relist it, but you may have 0 DOM, and then you might have however many days it was on market before. You might have, 62 days CDOM.
Okay. So you're saying it is legal to cancel that listing 30, 40 days later, I sign a new listing,
Mhm.
a new price, new MLS number with the
Yeah.
same listing agent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions from those of you guys on Zoom? Anyone have any questions for Shelly? She's been very helpful.
Hey, Shelley, this is Sylvia Ramos here. Appreciate
Hi.
you presenting here. I'm glad we got on. Thank you, Kelvin, for you and Giles troubleshooting to get us all on here. My question for you, well, I don't even know if I have a question. There's just so much information here. Kelvin had a lot of really good questions in here, and I took notes, especially the one where it involves an office manager on a violation as well with the $750. So I noted, very noted. I guess call it, I don't know what you want to call it, ignorance or whatever, but in a general part, but people actually post photos like that one that you showed in a bedroom.
Every one of those photos truly came off of the MLS.
Wow, I'm really shocked, but it's an eye-opening awareness, and I appreciate you sharing that and being so, forward with it, because it's something that I guess it's, can be taken for granted and not realize that it's back there. I think the photos that I am still in awe with are photos that agents take from their car, and you can see the frame of their window in their car.
Oh yeah. We see it all.
Yeah. But I guess there's no really question here. I just want to say you did an outstanding job, and I know this is great information for all of our agents to help keep us compliant.
Thank you.
Keep
And
us
everything that I covered is on our website under our compliance section. So all of the top violations, all of the explanations about clear cooperation, registered, coming soon, they're all on there. So I would highly recommend, if you have any questions, to go on the website, either click on compliance, or on the main page, if you go all the way down to the bottom, the very last banner is that knowledge base. And again, you can just type in whatever keywords that you want, and you're going to get pop-up of all sorts of different concise. We try and make the information as concise as possible, but there'll be FAQs, there'll be all kinds of information on there.
And CRMLS does a magnificent job with that, and I commend you on that. But some of our agents, including myself, we're still, including our baby boomers, we like in person. What,
Mhm.
when do you plan on having in-person classes again? And what class would you suggest to be a sequential class from this one?
We are doing in person. At this time, we're only doing the topic that I covered today.
Got it.
But we do have additional online right now for the new rules. It's kind of, these all took place September 1st. But if requested, we've got a 30-minute Zoom call that our Director of Compliance can do on the new rule updates as far as, oh gosh, it was Rule 12.16, I believe. And that one is as far as attribution, giving attribution to other agents if you're going to be using their listing and things like that. So at this time, in person would only be the exact same presentation that I did today.
Got it. Thank
Shelley,
you.
I have one more question too, real quick. In regards to the violations that, let's say I'm a broker and I'm looking at someone, and if I report and flag the listing for a potential violation,
Mhm.
since you work in the compliance department, I know you get these flags and to investigate. If I give you a bunch of flags or this and this and this, or is there a ding on my record, or is this, I know the other parties don't, I stay anonymous,
Right.
but is there anything that falls under me if I report too many or too, I
No,
don't know. Okay.
no, not at all. We don't keep track of that at all.
Okay, but you will have a notice of who flagged it, so you'll see it, my name flagging someone's
Yes.
listing.
Only we see that though.
Okay. Any other questions, guys?
Have a happy Thanksgiving, Shelley, from our
Thank
office.
you. You
viewers.
too. Yeah, you
Okay.
too.
Sounds like we're good. Thank you so much, Shelley, for being here. And on behalf
Okay.
of Global Banker Dynasty, we really thank you, and keep up doing CRMLS and expanding. I love it.
All
Wait,
right.
Kelvin, can I say my slogan? Can I say my tagline? Okay, so Shelley, at our office, we care, and we're an office with a lot of heart. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.